I never imagined a Sunday dinner could end with red wine soaking my shirt and my son screaming that I was selfish. But there I sat, heart pounding in the stillness that followed the crash, typing 4 words to my attorney. Proceed with the plan. Let me back up. My name is Anthony Ryan. I'm 61 years old. It's been 5 years since I buried my wife, Elena. She died of a sudden stroke, no warning, no time to prepare. Since then, I've been living alone in our 2-bedroom house in rural Idaho. It's a modest place, nothing fancy. We bought it back in 1998 for $87,000. Paid it off in 2019. The market's changed out here, but not like the cities. My place is probably worth $320,000 now, enough to make someone who's struggling take notice. I keep busy. Garden most mornings when the weather cooperates. Volunteer at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays, helping with their digital literacy program for seniors. Ironic, maybe, given what I was about to discover. The house is quiet, but it's mine. Elena's presence is still in every room, the kitchen curtains she sewed, the bookshelf we built together, the garden beds we planned one winter over her sketches and my measurements. My son Jacob is 34, works in commercial real estate. He does all right for himself, or so he says. Married to a woman named Stephanie. They've been together 6 years, married for 4. No kids yet, though Stephanie mentions it sometimes in that vague way people do when they're not actually planning anything. They live in Boise, about 3 hours away depending on traffic. Nice enough condo, from what I saw the one time I visited. I see them maybe every couple months, sometimes less. Jacob called me on a Wednesday to see if he and Stephanie could come up Sunday for dinner. Just want to catch up, he said. Spend some quality time. It sounded rehearsed. Jacob doesn't talk about quality time. He talks about closings and commission rates and interest points. I spent Saturday making pot roast Elena's recipe, the one with red wine and thyme that fills the house with warmth. I baked sourdough from the starter I've kept alive for 3 years. Even put fresh sheets on the guest bed in case they wanted to stay over, though I knew they wouldn't. The house smelled like Sunday dinners used to smell when Elena was alive. It felt good, almost normal. They arrived around 5. 0 inches the afternoon. I was washing lettuce at the kitchen sink when I saw Jacob's SUV pull into my gravel driveway. He and Stephanie got out, and she was carrying something, a wine bottle, I realized. Expensive looking, with a gold foil top. She only brings nice things when she's setting a stage. I'd noticed that pattern over the years. Dad! Jacob came through the door first, gave me a hug that felt measured, practiced. House smells amazing. Thanks, son. Stephanie followed, kissing my cheek too quickly. Too much perfume for a family dinner. Anthony, thank you so much for having us. I brought this wine. It's from a boutique vineyard near Sun Valley. Supposed to be exceptional. You didn't have to do that. Oh, I wanted to. She set it on the counter with a small, tight smile, the kind that stops at the mouth. We moved into the living room. I'd set the dining table already, the good plates, cloth napkins, the whole thing, but Jacob wanted to sit and talk first. That should have been my second warning. Jacob never wants to sit and talk. He checks his phone. He talks about work. He's restless, always watching the clock. Tonight, he was focused, present, glancing at Stephanie every few seconds like they were running a rehearsed pitch. So, Dad, Jacob started, settling into the armchair across from me. Stephanie and I have been talking about your situation here. My situation? I smiled, kept my voice even. What situation is that? Living here alone, this house, it's a lot of space for one person to manage. I manage just fine, lawn's mowed, bills are paid, roof doesn't leak. Stephanie leaned forward, elbows on her knees, concern painted across her face. But you're getting older, Anthony. What if something happens? What if you fall, or have a medical emergency, and no one knows for hours? I have my phone. Neighbors check on me. Jacob and Stephanie exchanged a look. A silent handoff. Here it comes, I thought. We have an idea, Jacob said, and reached into the bag beside his chair. He pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the coffee table toward me. Inside were documents, legal forms. I scanned the first page, and my chest tightened. Joint ownership, transfer of deed, my name, their names. I closed the envelope slowly. No. The air in the room changed instantly. That single word no hung in the air like smoke. Jacob's jaw tightened. Stephanie's smile flickered, then returned, brighter and more brittle than before. Dad, you didn't even look at it properly, Jacob said, voice carefully controlled. This is just to make things easier, legally, for everyone. I looked at enough. Stephanie reached for the envelope, pulling it back toward her side of the table. Anthony, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not trying to take anything from you. We're trying to protect you. I didn't answer, just watched them, the way Jacob's knee was bouncing, the way Stephanie kept smoothing her hair behind her ear, nervous tell she'd had since the first time I met her. They'd practiced this, probably in the car on the way up, maybe for days. I should have seen it coming sooner. The signs had been there for weeks. 2 months, really, if I'm being honest with myself. It started with phone calls. Jacob would ring midweek, unusual for him, and ask offhand questions. How's the property tax this year? Dad, you keeping up with the utilities okay? Ever think about what you'd do if the furnace went out? At first I thought he was just being thoughtful. Then the questions got sharper. You remember to pay the insurance this month? How much are you spending on groceries these days? Like I was a child who needed monitoring. Stephanie had her own angle. During their last visit in March, she'd walked through the house with this appraising look, touching the walls, peering into the spare bedroom. This is a lot of space for one person, Anthony, she'd said, voice sticky sweet. Don't you ever feel like it's overwhelming? No. Well, as you get older, big houses can become a burden, something to think about. I hadn't thought much of it then. Now it felt like reconnaissance. Then there was the visit that wasn't planned. Jacob showed up one Saturday in early April, no warning. Said he was in the area. He lives 3 hours away. He spent 20 minutes asking about my health, my memory, whether I'd been forgetting things. You seem a little scattered lately, Dad. I'm not scattered. Just checking. He'd even asked to see my medication organizer. Said he wanted to make sure I wasn't mixing anything up. I'd brushed it off. Thought maybe he was genuinely worried. Now, sitting across from him with that envelope between us, I understood. They'd been building a case, collecting evidence of my supposed decline, planting seeds of doubt. And tonight was the harvest. Dad, Jacob's voice pulled me back. We drove all the way up here. The least you can do is hear us out. I met his eyes, saw my son, saw a stranger. I heard you, I said quietly. And my answer is no. Stephanie's fingers tightened around her wine glass. I need to go back further. To the moment I knew something was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in early March. I was having coffee on the back porch, watching the sun climb over the tree line, when my phone buzzed. Email notification. Security alert. Password reset. Attempt on your account. My stomach dropped. Someone had tried to access my bank account. Tried and failed. The email said the attempt was blocked because the person couldn't verify the secondary authentication, but they'd gotten close. They'd answered the security questions correctly. Mother's maiden name, first pet's name, street I grew up on. Things only family would know. I called the bank immediately, spoke to a woman named Patricia in their fraud department. She was kind, professional, walked me through everything while I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and notepad. Mr. Ryan, I'm showing the access attempt originated from an IP address in Boise, Idaho. Does that mean anything to you? My hand stopped writing. Boise? Yes, sir. Specifically, it traces back to a commercial building downtown. Looks like it might be an office complex. Jacob worked in Boise, downtown Boise. Can you tell me what building? She gave me the address. I wrote it down, though I didn't need to. I already knew. It was Jacob's office. Mr. Ryan, are you still there? I'm here. Do you have family or friends in that area who might have been trying to help you with something? Help me." "Maybe," I said. "I'll look into it. I'd recommend changing your password and security questions immediately. And if you suspect unauthorized access by someone you know, you may want to consider additional protective measures." I thanked her, hung up, sat in the silence of my kitchen for 20 minutes. My son had tried to access my bank account. Not a stranger, not a scammer in another country. Jacob. The shock came first physical, like cold water, then sadness, deep and aching, and finally, clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't concern. This was something else entirely. I didn't call him, didn't text, didn't confront. Instead, I opened a notebook, one of Elena's old journals I'd never been able to throw away, and I started writing. I documented the date, the time, the phone call, the IP address. Everything Patricia told me. Then I went back through my recent conversations with Jacob. The questions about my finances, the comments about my age, Stephanie's remarks about the house. I wrote it all down. Over the next few weeks, I kept that journal close. Every strange phone call, every loaded comment, every unexpected visit, I recorded it. Dates, times, exact words when I could remember them. I also started looking into options, Googling phrases like elder financial abuse and protecting assets from family at the library where no one would see my search history. That's when I found Megan Hollis. Her website said she specialized in elder rights and estate protection. She had a kind face in her profile photo, but her credentials were serious. Former prosecutor, 20 years of experience. I called her office on a Thursday afternoon. "I think my son is trying to take my house," I said when she answered. There was a pause. Then, gently, "Tell me everything." So I did. And that's when I started preparing. Megan Hollis's office was in a small professional building on the edge of town, wedged between a dentist and a tax preparation service. I sat in the waiting room for 10 minutes, rehearsing what I'd say, feeling foolish and paranoid and heartbroken all at once. When she called me back, her handshake was firm. Her office smelled like coffee and leather. Diplomas lined one wall. On her desk sat a framed photo of 2 teenagers in graduation gowns. "Mr. Ryan," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "You sounded concerned on the phone. Tell me what's happening." I told her everything. The bank alert, the IP address, Jacob's questions, Stephanie's comments, the unexpected visits. I showed her my notebook with the dates and details I'd been tracking. My voice cracked twice. I was embarrassed. This was my son, my only child. Megan listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and nodded slowly. "You're not paranoid," she said, "and you're not overreacting. What you're describing follows a very common pattern." "What pattern?" "Financial exploitation. Often by adult children who feel entitled to a parent's assets. Sometimes it starts with good intentions, worry about your health, your age, but it becomes about control, and eventually it becomes about the money." Hearing it said out loud made it real in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel. "What do I do?" Megan opened a legal pad and started writing. "We protect you, legally and practically." Over the next hour, she outlined a plan. First, update my will. Remove any assumptions Jacob might have about automatic inheritance. Make everything explicit and conditional. Second, create a living trust. Transfer ownership of the house into the trust so it couldn't be claimed or contested easily. I'd still live there, still control everything, but legally it would be protected. Third, get a medical evaluation, a cognitive assessment from a licensed psychologist proving I was mentally sharp, dated, signed, sealed, so no one could claim I wasn't competent to make decisions. Fourth, establish a trigger phrase. If things escalated, if I felt unsafe or pressured, I'd text her a specific message, proceed with the plan, and she'd activate legal protections immediately. Restraining orders if needed, documentation for law enforcement. "Do you think it'll come to that?" I asked. "I hope not," she said, "but hope isn't a strategy." I left her office that afternoon with a folder full of documents and a follow-up appointment scheduled for the next week. I also stopped at an electronics store on the way home, bought a small audio recorder, the kind people use for lectures or interviews. The clerk showed me how it worked, simple, discreet. That night, I placed it on the bookshelf in my dining room, tucked behind a picture frame of Elena and me on our anniversary. I hated myself for doing it. I hated that I felt I had to. But I did it anyway. Because part of me, maybe the part that had raised Jacob, that had taught him right from wrong, that had believed family meant loyalty, still hoped I was wrong. But I wasn't going to bet my life on hope. The pot roast sat cooling on the stove. None of us had moved to eat. Jacob cleared his throat, resetting. "Dad, let's just talk this through rationally." "I'm listening." "You're 61. That's not old, I get that. But it's not young either. And living out here, alone, miles from the nearest hospital, it's risky." Stephanie nodded, her voice softening into something meant to sound compassionate. "We worry, Anthony. What if you have a fall? What if your blood pressure spikes again like it did last year?" I'd mentioned that once. A routine visit to the doctor, slightly elevated numbers. Nothing serious. But she'd remembered, filed it away. "My blood pressure is fine," I said evenly. "Doctor cleared me last month." "For now," Jacob said. "But things change, and you're not getting any younger." There it was, the shift from concern to condescension. Stephanie leaned in. "We've been reading about cognitive decline. It can be subtle at first. Little things, forgetting appointments, trouble managing finances." My pulse quickened, but I kept my face neutral. "I don't forget appointments, and my finances are in order." Jacob exchanged a glance with Stephanie. The look that said, "He doesn't even realize it." "Dad, remember that bank thing a couple months back? The security alert?" My chest tightened. "I remember. That kind of thing happens when people start to slip, get confused. Hackers target seniors because—" "I wasn't confused," I interrupted. "The bank handled it." "Right. But the point is, it's getting harder for you to keep track of everything, and we just want to help." Stephanie's hand moved to the envelope she'd pulled back earlier. She slid it toward Jacob. A handoff. He pushed it across the table to me again. "This isn't about taking anything from you, Dad. It's about making sure you're protected. It's just paperwork, joint ownership. That way, if something happens to you, the transition is smooth. No probate, no legal mess. And while you're still here, we can help manage things. Maintenance, bills, whatever you need." I stared at the envelope. Everything Megan had warned me about was happening in real time. I opened it slowly, scanned the first page, then the second. Transfer of deed, joint tenancy, my name, Jacob's name, Stephanie's name. Not protection. Ownership. My heartbeat slowed. A strange calm settled over me. I closed the envelope, set it down, looked at my son. No. Jacob's face hardened. Stephanie's jaw clenched. The performance was over. Jacob's hand slammed down on the table. The silverware jumped. The wine bottle rattled. "You're being selfish." I didn't flinch. "This house," Jacob's voice was rising now, color flooding his face. "You don't even need all this space. 2 bedrooms you never use, a yard you can barely keep up with. We're trying to help you, and you won't even consider it." "I considered it," I said quietly. "The answer is no." Stephanie stood up, pacing to the window, then back. Her sweetness was gone, replaced with something sharp and desperate. "Your memory is slipping, Anthony. You don't even see it. Jacob told me about the bank issue. You couldn't even manage your own account properly. That's a sign. A clear sign." I went cold. Jacob had told her about the bank alert, twisted it, weaponized it. Not as evidence of someone trying to access my account. As evidence that I was losing my mind. "The bank issue," I said slowly, "was someone trying to reset my password, not me forgetting it." "That's not what Jacob said." I looked at my son. He wouldn't meet my eyes. They'd built a narrative, practiced it, coordinated their story. I wasn't being protected. I was being diagnosed, declared incompetent, prepared for a takeover. Dad. Jacob's tone shifted, trying to pull back, soften. We're not attacking you. We love you. But you have to be realistic. You're alone out here. You're aging. Things are going to get harder. We're just trying to make sure you're taken care of. By taking my house. It's not taking. It's exactly that. Stephanie's voice turned icy. You're being ungrateful. Do you know how many people would kill to have family who actually cares? Who shows up? Who tries to plan ahead so you don't end up in some state-run facility when you can't take care of yourself anymore? I can take care of myself. For now, Jacob said. But what about next year? 5 years from now? You think you'll still be able to manage? You think the neighbors will keep checking on you forever? Guilt, fear, doubt. They were hitting every pressure point they could find. You owe us this, Stephanie added, her voice trembling with anger now. After everything Jacob's done for you, all the visits, all the phone calls, the worry. I said nothing. Just sat there, hands folded, watching them unravel. My silence seemed to unnerve them more than any argument could have. Jacob stood, breathing hard. Say something, Dad. I met his eyes. I already did. Stephanie grabbed her wine glass. Her hand was shaking. And that's when everything shattered. The police arrived within 20 minutes. 2 officers, one older, gray at the temples, the other younger, with a notebook already out. I met them at the door, still wearing my wine-soaked shirt. Mr. Ryan, the older officer said, I'm Officer Dalton. This is Officer Martinez. You reported an assault? Yes. My daughter-in-law threw a wine glass at me. They looked past me into the house. Jacob and Stephanie were standing in the living room, frozen. Stephanie's mascara had run. Jacob's hands were shoved in his pockets. Officer Dalton's eyes took in the scene, the shattered glass on the floor, the wine stain on the wall, my soaked shirt. He turned back to me. Are you injured, sir? No, but she threw it at my head. It missed. Can you tell us what led up to this? I told them everything. The dinner invitation, the envelope, the joint ownership papers, the pressure, the accusations about my memory and competence, the explosion. Officer Martinez was writing quickly. When I mentioned the bank login attempt and the financial pressure, Dalton's expression shifted. How old are you, Mr. Ryan? 61. He nodded slowly. And they were trying to get you to sign over property rights? Yes. He glanced at his partner. Some unspoken understanding passed between them. That changes things, Dalton said. This could fall under elder abuse statutes, financial exploitation combined with physical intimidation. Stephanie overheard. Her voice rose from inside. Elder abuse? He's not even that old. And I didn't hurt him. Dalton stepped inside. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. The next hour was a blur of questions and documentation. They photographed my shirt, the broken glass, the stain on the wall. They separated Jacob and Stephanie, questioning them in different rooms. I heard Jacob's voice, pleading. We were just worried about him. His memory's been going. We thought he needed help managing things. Officer Martinez looked up from his notes. So, you decided the best way to help was to get him to sign over his house? It wasn't like that. What was it like? Silence. That's when Megan arrived. She must have been nearby when she got my text. She walked in carrying a leather briefcase, her expression calm but steely. I'm Megan Hollis, Mr. Ryan's attorney. Dalton nodded. Ma'am? She set the briefcase on the dining table and opened it. I have documentation that may be relevant to your investigation. She pulled out files. The bank alert with the IP address traced to Jacob's office. My journal entries with dates and quotes. The cognitive evaluation proving my mental sharpness. The timeline of suspicious behavior. Jacob's face went pale as she laid them out one by one. This isn't a sudden dispute, Megan said evenly. This is a pattern of financial pressure and manipulation that's been building for months. Officer Martinez studied the documents, looked at Jacob. Is this true? Did you attempt to access your father's bank account? Jacob stammered. I was just checking to make sure. Without his permission? Silence. Dalton crossed his arms. Son, I think you'd better start being straight with us. And that's when Jacob broke. We're trying to buy a house, he said, voice cracking. The market's insane. We can't afford anything decent. We thought if we had equity in Dad's place, we could leverage it, use it as security. He doesn't need all that space. You thought you were entitled to it. Megan finished. Jacob looked at the floor. I sat at my own dining table, listening to my son confess. Heartbroken, but not surprised. Officer Dalton turned to me. Mr. Ryan, do you want to press charges? I looked at Jacob, at Stephanie, crying in the corner. I want a protective order, I said, and I want them to leave. Megan nodded. We'll file for a temporary order tonight. The legal battle had begun. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my back porch, watching the sun drop behind the pine trees. The garden is thriving, tomatoes heavy on the vine, zucchini spreading wide, basil so thick I've been giving it away to the neighbors. The house is quiet, but it's mine. The trust was finalized in late June. Megan walked me through every page, every clause. The house is protected now, locked in a structure that can't be contested or claimed. I'll live here as long as I want. When I'm gone, it'll pass to a trust for any future grandchildren, if Jacob ever has them with strict conditions. Educational expenses. Medical needs. Nothing Jacob or Stephanie can touch directly. Jacob's inheritance exists, but it's minimal. A symbolic amount. Enough that he can't claim he was completely disinherited, but not enough to reward what he tried to do. Megan called it a legal boundary. I call it self-preservation. Jacob has tried to reach out, texts at first, then emails, then a letter, handwritten, that arrived in September. Dad, I know I messed up. I was stressed. We were desperate. I never meant to hurt you. Can we please talk? I didn't respond. Stephanie sent a message too, through a mutual acquaintance, said she was so sorry, and that she'd been going through a difficult time emotionally. I didn't respond to that either. Some people think I'm being too hard, that family should forgive, that people make mistakes. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. A calculated effort to take what wasn't theirs, because they believed I was too old, too weak, or too naive to stop them. And I almost didn't. If I hadn't seen that bank alert, if I hadn't called Megan, if I hadn't prepared, I don't like to think about what would have happened. The grief is real. I miss the son I thought I had, the relationship I thought we'd built, but I can't miss what was never really there. And in the space that grief left behind, something else has grown. Peace. I've reconnected with old friends from the library. Started a weekly poker game with 3 other retirees who live nearby. Joined a woodworking class at the community center, something I'd always wanted to try, but never made time for. Elena's garden beds are fuller than they've been in years. I'm fuller than I've been in years. The protective order expired last month. Jacob didn't violate it. Didn't come near the house. Didn't call. I think he finally understands. I sit here now, coffee in hand, as the sky turns amber and pink. The air smells like cut grass and pine. Somewhere down the road, a dog barks. A screen door slams. Normal sounds, safe sounds. I think about that night, the wine-soaked shirt, the shattered glass, the moment I sent that text. Proceed with the plan. 4 words that changed everything. I'd been prepared. I'd listened to my instincts. I'd protected myself when no one else would. Some people call that selfish. I call it survival. Family can wound you deeper than anyone else. They know where the soft places are. They know what you value. And sometimes, they use that knowledge as a weapon. But choosing to protect yourself, choosing boundaries, dignity, safety isn't cruelty. It's self-love. I finish my coffee, stand slowly, knees protesting a little, walk back inside. The house is quiet, but it's mine. And I saved myself.